It's a special edition of the Wrestling Perspective podcast. What's going on? Dennis Farrell here. No PD Williams on this special edition podcast, but he will be here later in the week to record the regular scheduled Wrestling Perspective podcast with myself and him. I've tried to record this intro 3 or 4 different times. I'll be honest with you guys. I had an opportunity to sit down with Sami Callihan, who right now is one of my favorite people, not even wrestlers, but just people. I wanted to keep the integrity of the Sami Callihan character while trying to get his views on wrestling and just different things and show everybody a little peek inside who Sami was. So I was nervous. I'm not even going to lie to you. I was nervous. Here is a guy that I could sit down for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours and just chat away with, who is one of the most amazing, kind guys you will ever meet. And look, I'm not kissing his butt right now. He's not even here. Okay, it's just me and you. I went to an independent show this weekend and watched him shake every hand, talk to every person, sign autographs. He gave a shirt to a young fan who was nervous. This is a guy who loves the business and sometimes gets a bad rap from people. He doesn't have a bad attitude. He is one of the most amazing, cool people in the world. And he's one of those guys that one day I will be glad to call a friend. I hope we get there one day. So this is just a little something of me and him sitting down, just chewing the fat, getting to know each other. I think this might have been the longest conversation we had to date. We've talked here and there, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes throughout the last year. And I got to tell you people, I wish everybody knew the Sami Callihan I know, because he is one of the coolest guys around. And I hope this interview is if anything entertaining. Okay. I will tell you 90% of this podcast is me being a fanboy. And I don't know if I should apologize for it or just warn you ahead of time. Just go in and enjoy it. He's not talking anything newsworthy. There's no big wrestling headlines here. This is just Sami Callihan talking to me. And it was fun. And I had a blast. And I hope I get to do it again, because this truly is one of the smartest guys around. And maybe next time I'll be a little more professional. I didn't really know what to expect going into this. I just want to warn you guys. But I thought this was fun. And I hope you will agree. Please feel free to tweet me at Dennis77Farrell, Farrell. Let me know what you thought. I didn't do this podcast for the downloads. I didn't do this for getting headlines. There are certain guests when PD and we get onto the podcast, I'll go, if I ask this guy this, and if he answers somewhat truthfully, this could get us a couple extra clicks and downloads because the dirt sheets will pick it up. This isn't one of those podcasts. I did not go into this thinking that, trying to craft a question that way. It's just me asking questions that I want to know. I think I threw in a few fan questions. You may hear your questions in there, and I apologize. I didn't have my list with me. This kind of came spur of the moment. So I really hope everybody enjoys. What I truly enjoyed was the time I got to spend with Sami Callihan here today. And before we hit the OVE Sami Callihan theme song and get into the interview, we have some brass tacks to get to, a little housekeeping. The lifeblood of the podcast and the radio show is BlueChew.com. I know you've heard the Blue Chew ads on every single podcast, right? And you're probably thinking, not for me. I'll buy a shirt, I'll buy a pin, I'll buy a hat, but I'm not buying Blue Chew. And I kind of agree with you. I use it. I enjoyed it, but it may not be for you, but it helps us. So why don't you just go to BlueChew.com? Use the promo code PERSPECTIVE, right? You get your first order for free. You save, a ton of money. Just pay $5 shipping and handling, and use it. Don't use it. Put it in a drawer. I don't care what you do with it. Try it out. Don't tell anybody. Tell a friend. Who am I to tell you what to do? All I'm saying is, if you just go to BlueChew.com, use the promo code Perspective, and get your order, pay the $5 shipping and handling, it helps out the show big time. And I don't know what you want to do with it outside of that, but it helps us. And I know you've spent $5 on merch that you wish you could get back. Trust me. But this helps the podcast. If you're like, gee, I wonder how we can help the podcast. Well, this is it, okay? I'm telling you, do it. Help us. Help, please. Please. If PD were here, he'd use his cute Canadian accent to sway you into buying it. I'm begging. I'm not above begging. See? Look, I'm begging. Anyways, and if you're like, what is Blue Chew? Let's just say it helps you get to the top of the mountain in bed. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. The main event. You can headline your own pay-per-view in your bedroom with your missus, or if you're a woman and let's say you're dating a mid-carder and you wish you could elevate him to the main event in the bedroom, this is what Blue Chew does. It's chewable, so it works twice as fast as a pill. It's made with the same active ingredients as Cialis and the other blue pill, so you know it works. It's made in the United States, so it's cheaper. You can order it online, so there's no more doctor visits. I just could keep going on and on and on. I won't. So just go to BlueChew.com. Help us out. You know, you can shoot me a DM and tell me you did it, and I'll high-five you and give you a shout-out on the podcast. Maybe I won't go, hey, Tim Johnson has ED and he ordered Blue Chew. I won't do that. But I do it for people who order a T-shirt. I'll do it for the people who order Blue Chew. I won't muddy the waters, and I'll let the fan base guess. See, it's a great game that we all could play. You know, did Tim Johnson or April Sutherson or whoever, I'm just making up names, order a T-shirt or Blue Chew? You'll never know because I won't tell. All right, that's a bad game. But either way, go order the Blue Chew. And you're like, what? Did he say T-shirts? I did. Guess what? We have T-shirts. whatforapparel.com/WPP. Go there, buy a shirt. It's one of the cheapest podcast shirts you'll find. PD and I decided we would rather sell shirts than make profit, although it doesn't hurt if we, make a buck or two. But we have some of the lowest prices shirts, so you can afford to buy them without breaking the bank. You can wear them. You can tell us. We are super excited whenever we get a tweet or a DM that says, hey, we bought a shirt. We've got several designs. We've got some more coming. We appreciate anything and everything you guys do for the show. That's the only two things, a shirt and Blue Chew, that we're going to ask to hawk to you guys. So that's it. And outside of that, we don't do Patreon. All right, so this Sami Callihan on some podcasts would be hidden behind a paywall. Patreon, be a monthly subscriber, and we'll give you the Sami Callihan interview. We'll give you the Young Bucks interview. We'll give you Killer Cross. We'll give you whatever. We do all these interviews. We give them to you for free because we are putting our fans over profit. And we thank you guys. So now look, we're like 8 minutes in and you're like, hey, where's Sami Callihan? Joke's on you. He's not coming. I know, really, he is. Here's the theme song now.
OVE. Ohio versus everything.
It's not very often that this guy takes time out of his night and spends it with other people on a podcast. One of the very guarded wrestlers in the industry. I'm lucky enough that he's donating some time to the Wrestling Perspective. I'm talking about the one, the only, the Draw, Sami Callihan. Thank you so much for your time, bud.
That is the type of introduction I am talking about. See, you actually respect the Draw. See, I'm going to be okay with you tonight because you're actually showing me the respect that I deserve.
I am a fanboy of you, and I don't want to talk.
As you should.
I am.
As you should.
So you were one of these guys that Petey and I had you on several months ago, and it was a 5-minute interview, and everybody was clamoring for more because you don't talk very often unless you have something to say. And I feel I'm kind of geeking out here. I'm not even going to lie to you because you're like I said, very guarded with who you talk to.
Yeah, there's too many people out there nowadays that run a podcast or a radio show that might only have like 5 or 10 listeners and act like they're an actual journalist. And that's the problem with professional wrestling right now and just social media in general. There's podcasts about movies. There's podcasts about sports. There's podcasts about any avenue of life. And there's people trying to voice their opinions on things that they have absolutely no clue of what they're talking about.
Do you listen to many podcasts?
I do. I am a big podcast enthusiast, actually. I have probably 3 or 4 podcasts that I'll listen to on a regular basis weekly.
Have you ever thought about doing a podcast on your own, maybe after your wrestling career is over? Or is it just kind of like everybody has it now, and even if you wanted to, just out of principle, you wouldn't do it?
Well, I'm a very creative guy, and I like to have my hands in a lot of pots. It's something that's been getting thrown around a lot lately, and I actually think we might launch a podcast before the end of the year. I'm going to maybe jump over to that side of the fence for a little bit and see if I can make some money with my voice.
Boy, if I can help you in any way, please reach out. I'd love to help you any way I could if you decided to go that avenue.
Good. Let's do it.
So
I'm telling you right now, let's do it. Stay on me. You know how hard I am to get a hold of. Just stay on me. Keep reminding me. Let's do this podcast. Let's do this podcast.
You know what? I do. And here's the problem. Like, I consider us acquaintances and probably a little more friends now than when I first...
I gave you a t-shirt.
Yeah,
I gave you a t-shirt.
You did. And up until this weekend, I would have called us acquaintances. I was afraid of PDs that you were going to do a favor for. And
you tried to pay me 20 Canadian dollars, and I told you put it back in your pocket because, to be honest, what is that, like $1 American dollar at this point?
If that, right? I mean, I don't even know if it even spins here, does it?
But the money in Canada doesn't look real. I'm pretty sure it's actually fake money.
And I don't even know if it even has any value over there. I think it's just a gag that they play on us Americans when we go over there.
It's very scary.
So,
no,
one of the things I want to talk about I threw it out there that I was going to interview you, and everybody's question either started or ended with the word Dean Ambrose, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. And I don't really want to get into that too much because he's under contract. You don't really know, or even if you did, you probably wouldn't tell us because you want to keep it secret. But we'll talk about that later. I want to talk about your obsession with the Nintendo 64 to start this off because I too.
Oh, man, N64 master.
I am an enthusiast now. I have a Nintendo 64. NWO versus WCW Revenge is a constant. I am a gold.
I destroy you.
Well, this is where
I bet I beat you in under a minute.
Under a minute.
Under a minute.
Really? This is what? Now, what are we going to bet here? Because this is you're coming to the Windsor shows. I hope for either the Impact tapings or Border City, and
I am, and I will bring my Nintendo 64 if I need to lay down an asphalt.
Well, can bring mine too if you conveniently forget yours. But I am. This is what I was hoping you were going to say, that you were a Nintendo, a NWO versus WCW Revenge guy.
I like No Mercy a lot, but I have to say my 2 favorite are NWO, WCW Revenge, because I like the quick play action, because you can beat someone in under a minute if you catch them with a good submission or a good strike out of nowhere. But if I have to say the best of all time is Virtual Pro 2, man. Really? Virtual Pro 2, if you haven't played it yet, you got to get it offline. You got to plug that in. You got to get your chops up, because that's where the big boys play.
You're not a GoldenEye guy?
GoldenEye's okay. If I'm going to play a game like that now, I'm just going to play Call of Duty. Like, technology has really blown that out of the water, where it really doesn't hold up for me to this day. Now you talk about Super Mario 64 or a little bit of Mario Kart or original Mario Party, I'll play the hell out of that. I'll play the hell out of some wrestling games. I'll play the hell out of some football games. So if I want to play a shooter, I'm going straight for Call of Duty on my PlayStation 4 right now.
Oh, I am going to have to switch PlayStation names, because that is the game I play. I'm not very good at it, but I have a lot of fun trash talking in it.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
But
I got anxiety attacks over Call of Duty. It gets intense.
Oh my gosh, isn't it? Now, like I said, I set this up because I did want to talk about what was your wrestling watching habits growing up, because I am an outspoken fan of WCW. I grew up on it. I love it.
I was a WCW kid, man. I'm not going to lie. During the Monday Night War, I watched both, and I liked a lot of people from both. But I was always on the WCW NWO side of the fence. Like, to me, when I was younger, that's where, like, for lack of better terms, that's where the big boys played.
Did you ever try to style in the early 1.0 of the Sami Callihan character after anybody in the WCW?
Oh, I watch a lot of Fit Finlay, and I'm a huge fan of the Dungeon of Doom. Say what you want about it, but it's my childhood. That was a big part of my childhood, just like The Undertaker was. And I always like to base myself off their larger-than-life monsters, just like they did the Dungeon of Doom. Kevin Sullivan was the man back in the day to me. I was like, look at this little old man just destroying people, and he has a whole army of monsters. Like, what's not cool about that?
Well, and that was, Halloween Havoc for me will always be my all-time favorite pay-per-views.
Oh, giant inflatable gargoyle with a pumpkin, best entrance in wrestling history.
Thank you. And you know what? Say what you will, and you have your Dungeon of Doom and your Kevin Sullivan, but still to me, one of my all-time favorite angles in wrestling was the Black Scorpion angle. And I get made fun of constantly over this, but you take out the cheesiness, that was probably one of the best well-thought-out angles that happened at that time period.
100% doesn't get enough credit for how good it was.
Do you think something like that could be rebooted in today's wrestling?
100%. Anything can be rebooted if done correctly. The problem right now is people just trying to do it exactly like it was before, and instead of like trying to think out of the box and taking someone else's idea, making it your own, and actually adding more layers to it. Like if you do it exactly, it's not going to work. But you spice in a little bit of technology from today's day and age, and we're off to the races.
See, that's one of my complaints when I listen to some of these old school bookers. I won't call anybody out by name who have podcasts, and they complain about today's wrestling where they don't evolve in their like for today's wrestling. It has to be
and I think they're just looking back at their nostalgic acts and being like, this is the best. But I think professional wrestling right now is better than it's ever been from an athletic standpoint and a story standpoint. A lot of people want to be like, oh, guys from this generation are just spot monkeys. No, guys from this generation put a lot more thought into wrestling than anyone ever did on any other generation. And I think it shows with how wrestling's blowing up again.
You know what? You mentioned the spot monkey stuff, and I think I agree with you because I think that's part of the revitalization of independent wrestling where, the group that was kicked in the face the most by critics was, the Young Bucks. Oh, they're just super kicking and spot monkeys. They're ruining.
The Young Bucks are probably millionaires right now from the fan base they built off their form of entertainment, so they must be doing something right.
Exactly. These are the guys that, 2 years ago were getting buried by everybody, are now the linchpin of revitalizing the independent circuits. I think that
they changed the wrestling business. 100%.
I think that in podcasts, believe it or not, I kind of equate this to like the 80s in the stand-up comedy industry, where in the 80s, stand-up comedy had never been bigger. Every corner was a comedy club, comic acts everywhere. 90s, it dies out. Then the inventions of the podcast come out. Now all these comics have podcasts, and comedy has never been better since the 80s now.
No. I'll listen to the Joe Rogan podcast on a regular basis. I'll listen to the Mark Maron, who I consider kind of the godfather of podcasts. I'll listen to him regularly. The Jim Jeffries show regularly. There's a lot of good comedians, and they talk about more than just comedy, and that's what's good about the pro wrestling podcasts right now. If the good ones, like you look at Jericho's podcast or Colt Cabana's podcast, it's not just about wrestling. It's about life. It's about connecting with people outside of their element.
Is there if you were to make the switch into podcasting, who would be your number one want to interview guy?
I think Scott Steiner, man. Scott Steiner, anything he does gets big numbers, and I think that would be one of the most ridiculous podcasts ever, just Sami Callihan going one-on-one verbally with Scott Steiner for 40 minutes to an hour.
You know what? I kind of, now that I think about it, I can kind of do it. And we could almost do a version of it if we can get Petey to do a Scott Steiner impersonation when you're on.
And I'm down with that. I'm not gonna lie. I'm good for some old Maple Leaf muscle Petey Williams.
Let's talk about you now in Impact Wrestling. Last time we had you on, you had said to me that you wanted Impact to give you the ball. You wanted to be the face of Impact. Do you feel like they have given you the ball right now, or do you kind of think that they should have done, or you could have done, or somebody could have done a better job of giving you the ball? Because as a Sami Callihan fan now, I will say this before you say anything else. I don't know why you haven't had a major title just yet.
Well, I don't know that either. I just got my first heavyweight championship match against John Morrison this past week in Smash. I'm pretty sure it did pretty good business. But I can't harp on Impact Management right now because it's the first company to actually give me the ball without restraints or without handcuffs and actually let me go out and be myself. And if you look at my 2018, the 2018 was the best year of my entire career. And I think 2019 is going to blow up into another echelon.
Now, how hard do you think it is to build on this as for Sami Callihan? As you said, look, the industry, phenomenal. There are a million places now you can work, and you can work on 10
The door's wide open for me right now. I don't care what company. I'm saying right now I'm one of the hottest commodities in all of wrestling. I'm the hottest commodity in Impact Wrestling, as you see, as voted by the fans, even though I'm the most hated guy in Impact Wrestling history. I won Match of the Year, I won Moment of the Year, and I won Wrestler of the Year. So 2019 is a wide open door for me that I'm about to kick open.
Do you reflect a lot on what you're doing? I know there are some guys that don't even think once it happens and they move on. There are some guys that can reflect back.
Well, I'm looking onwards to the next step of my career and seeing how I can capitalize on any buzz I have or ride the momentum of any great match that I have.
I asked.
I'm never satisfied. I'm not a complacent person. It's never enough. Being on a television show for 40 minutes, if it was an hour show, isn't enough for me. I want to be every second of every day the person that everyone's talking about. That's what I'll continue to try to be.
When I had Dave on last week to do the podcast, we were talking about how Rockstar Pro had been more involved with Impact Wrestling, and I loved it. And I really felt like there was an opportunity to turn Rockstar Pro, especially with what OVE has done and is doing right now, into like the NWO version of Sold Out, where you do a invite only to Impact wrestlers, kind of like NWO Sold Out, where it was, OVE Sold Out or whatever you would call it.
And I think we've already started doing that. If you look at the Twitch show that we ran with Impact back in December, we sold that show out in Dayton on a week's notice, and then we were one of the most successful Twitch shows they've ever put on. And I think that's going to continue to grow. We announced that on March 1st that Impact Wrestling is coming back to Dayton at Rockstar Pro, and we're going to knock it out of the park again to show exactly why Dayton and Ohio truly is the epicenter of professional wrestling does. There's no one that's going to tell us anything different.
If anybody is around Dayton and hasn't been to a Rockstar Pro show, I went for my first one over the weekend and I was blown away. I didn't know what to expect when I showed up, and I got there, and it was an amazing.
Between the Rockstar Pro and Wrestling Revolver, which is my other company that I run, we sell out shows there all the time. We're moving into a bigger and better building. March 1st is actually our very first show in that building. We outgrew our past building, and it's just going to get bigger and better. I ran a show last year at the Rockstar Pro Arena under the Revolver banner, and I had Naito on the show. Yep, I actually got Naito to come and wrestle a show in America that was up in the Ring of Honor, and we sold out that show in under 4 minutes. So we must be doing something right out here in our Midwest territory right now.
When you set up a show, when you book a show, do you kind of equate the way you book to maybe somebody else's way? I guess I'm asking, what is your influences?
I have my own way that I've built upon learning from great minds under the wrestling business. I'm not tooting my own horn, but I've been able to have meetings with Dusty Rhodes when I was at NXT and have him slowly teach me how to break down and write a television show. I've had great conversation with some of the best bookers from all over the world. I've had great conversations, and I've been on the learning tree of Gabe Sapolsky, another guy that's helped blow up independent wrestling over the past 15, 20 years. I've got to pick the brain of a lot of successful people, and I've kind of took bits and pieces of everyone that was successful and worked them into my own method. And my own method is I want all my wrestling shows, and the way I look at wrestling is the buffet of professional wrestling. I have a little bit of everything for someone. It doesn't matter what style you like. If you like hardcore, we got hardcore. If you like high flying, we got high flying. If you like comedic wrestling, we got comedic wrestling. I like to have a little bit of everything to just knock someone's socks off, so a show will never become monotone, and a show is always keeping you guessing of what's going to come next.
You recently Impact lost Abyss and Sanjay Dutt, who I've been backstage. I see what they do. They've replaced them.
I'm not gonna lie, that's gonna suck. Those are two guys that's been there since day one of me being there, and it's gonna be weird not having them around. Abyss is an amazing dude. He's a legend, legitimate legend, and it was awesome getting to work with him the time I did. And Sanjay Dutt's another guy that's just one of those younger guys, producers, that's finally getting a chance to run things backstage, and he's going to knock it out of the park wherever he goes.
PD's brokenhearted because Sanjay was one of his best friends. It was the reason he came out of retirement to come back to Impact Wrestling. But with that big void and with what you know, do you feel like you could or would even want to kind of step in and start being, and I'm not saying you're not a locker room leader. I've seen you talk to people, you sit people down, but do you think this is an opportunity for Sami Callihan maybe to step up more and be more of a presence backstage as a leader role or a mentor?
I don't really know, man. Like, never say never. Right now, I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty selfish. I'm worried about myself and becoming Impact World Heavyweight Champion. I think me doing something like that in the backstage area is something that's a conflict of interest, and I'd rather worry about myself right now than worry about someone else.
Now, let's talk about the move to the Pursuit Network. Let's not talk good or bad about it. That's, yet to be seen and what the outcome of that is. But a lot of talk is now that the move to Pursuit is happening, there's going to be a change in the way the show is going to be written. Are you excited?
Yeah, we need more. The one good thing about Pursuit is Anthem, our parent company, has invested interest and invested stock in this smaller network that could blow up at any time. So we're going to be able to really push the boundaries and do what we want. And I don't even think people realize how big this Twitch deal could really be if it blows up the proper way. It's already doing great numbers. And the way people watch their content now, like, television is never going to completely die, but television isn't what it used to be. Wrestling programs around the world aren't doing the best ratings on television, but I think there's more people actually watching professional wrestling right now than there ever has been before, because people watch their content definitely. People have networks. People watch Hulu. People watch Netflix. People find ways to watch their content the way they want to watch it. And now if you have internet, you have Impact. So anyone around the world can watch Impact whenever they want.
No, I agree. I think just the move in itself off of Pop, I think that was a lateral move. But then you open up the ability to now show your show on Twitch. That's huge. That is a game changer. Look, Pursuit doesn't have the sexiest name out there, but do you really need the sexiest name right now? I don't think so.
And every time Impact has broadcast live on Twitch with their Impact Wrestling television show, it's been one of the top 15 shows watched on Twitch that day or that week. And that's huge when you really think about it, because there's streamers that get millions of views weekly. And I don't think people really realize how big the internet community in video games and that echelon of people really is.
Do you mentioned that the door's open for you to go other places, and I totally respect that. But do you think there are a few new companies out there trying to sign wrestlers to exclusive contracts? Do you think that is a kind of a dying thing in today's independent wrestling, the exclusive contract?
No, exclusive offers are never going to die. I'm under somewhat of a big exclusive deal of Impact. Like, I always wrestle under their banner now for the foreseeable future with my deal. But I'm still going to be able to build bridges and fill gaps, because Impact's willing to work with other people, and they're willing to realize that, screw it, like, if you're not WWE, we should all be working together to truly make the alternative and truly make professional wrestling better for all the boys so we can all make better money.
I'm curious because you also wrestle with MLW. Do you think, and I don't know if there's a relationship there. I'm not a dirt sheet guy. I don't know any of the inside workings. But from a guy that has kind of bounced back and forth and knows each company, do you think they could learn a thing or two from each other?
100%. And I think they're both open, and I think it's going to change a lot of opinions in wrestling over the last year of how partnerships work with MLW and Impact. They're probably going to hopefully share talent this year. They're obviously working together WrestleMania weekend so they can both run amazing shows and doing a little bit of a talent trade. And I think that moving forward just opens the doors for a lot of interesting matches that people want to see that you obviously couldn't see anywhere else.
When Sami Callihan isn't wrestling, is he watching wrestling? What is some of your interests outside of it? Because I guess me as a romantic, romanticizing, guys that I watch and love, I just imagine they're sitting on the, couch watching any kind of wrestling when possible. So I'm naive enough to, I guess I would say that I'm floored when someone isn't watching wrestling.
Well, I do. I watch our show every Thursday, and I try to keep up on all the other companies and what's going on in the indies. So I like to have my thumb on the pulse of what's happening, what's getting over in wrestling right now. But outside of there, dude, I'm a busy man. I have my hands on a lot of projects with running my company, the Wrestling Revolver, or working on films, or editing, or working on websites, or working on graphics, or a bunch of different avenues. So looking at opening a small restaurant here soon. Like, I'm always looking to better my life and to do something creative because I get bored really easily, and I always got to be working on something.
Are you a foodie? You're opening a small restaurant.
Our new Rockstar Pro Arena, we actually got approved for a food license, and we're looking to open a small restaurant out of our building called Turnbuckles and Brews that we're going to be opening up on March 1st.
I can envision maybe a bunch of live podcasting there.
100%. And a lot of dope concerts and a lot of sweet wrestling shows.
Oh my God, that is so cool! I will come out for that. I don't know if it'll be March 1st, but trust me, I will absolutely come down. I had a blast like I said, at the Rockstar Pro show. So that was
and little known fact: the actual owner of Rockstar Pro, one of our partners in a lot of our ventures, C.W. Scott, is actually an amazing cook, and he's a vegan. But he doesn't only cook vegan food. He has cooked the best steak I've ever had in my life, and having him head up all the food department is going to be great because he's the best cook I've ever eaten any food out of from my entire life.
Oh my gosh, I am a sucker for a good steak. So you had me at steak.
At our Rockstar Pro Arena, like, we run our weekly Wednesday shows, and we run our big shows on the first Friday of every month. But there's a lot of times, like, he'll just bring the barbecue and cook food for all the boys. And even though he's a vegan, he's cooking some mean steaks and some mean chicken. And then he also cooks vegan options for the vegans on the show. So it's a win-win situation for everybody.
Nice. Let's switch gears here to something that's going to be hard to talk about for both of us, and it's the Dean Ambrose, Jon Moxley situation. I have to bring it up. I mean, I had probably, when I announced it, I was doing this, any questions, I had easily 100 email of, Switchblade conspiracy, have you talked to him, is he going to be OVE? My guess is he's going to be a guy that hits the independent scene and not sign a contract. He's going to just kind of enjoy being a free agent and floating around. Now,
this is all I'll say about Jon Moxley, whatever you want to call him, and I'll pretty much leave it at that. Jon Moxley is a guy where money never mattered to him. And he's a really, really strong-minded person that has his own goals in life and just looks at life a lot differently than everyone else. If he leaves WWE, he's going to be successful. If he stays at WWE, he's going to be successful. And with him, honestly, you don't know what he's going to do. He's the type of person where anything is possible and legit anything could happen.
Are you excited? I mean, for you personally, maybe even being a little selfish, the chance that if this happens, he goes through, whether it's a work or a shoot or whatever people want to call this. Let's say he's a free agent and the 90 days are up and around April. Are you excited what could be between you and him?
I don't know. I don't know if I want to go down that path. I don't know if I want to. That could end very badly for both of us because I think it could end very violently if me and him end up having to go one-on-one with you.
That's an interesting answer. I like that. Because I'll be honest, when he became pretty popular on the independent circuit, I had kind of drifted out of the wrestling industry. I think I was working at ESPN at the time doing fantasy football. So when I got back into wrestling hardcore like I am now, he was already Dean Ambrose in NXT. So I missed a lot of those early days with him, Switchblade Conspiracy, and I feel like I'm doing a lot of catch up when I talk to people about stuff like this. I also have to ask you, you're a co-trainer too, right?
Yeah, me and Dave Chris run our own school, the OI4K Wrestling Academy out of Dayton, Ohio, and we have a pretty good track record right now. If you look at the guys that we either trained for scratch or straight up handpicked and helped hone them into what they've become, you look at all three Rascals. You can look at guys like Ace Austin. You look at guys like Clayton Gaines. We have guys that are blowing up in wrestling worldwide, getting signed with national television deals all over the world. So we can't be doing too bad of a job. And I say that a lot because I try to be humble, but we're not doing too bad of a job because we're all able to live our dream on television together, and we run a badass wrestling school, so life ain't that bad.
No, it's not. I can't wait to take a tour of it. I was talking to Dave over the weekend. He's like, yeah, anytime you want to come down and take a look. This is, like I said, this is really the first year now I'm not going to shows as PD's sidekick, his little nerdy buddy that carries the microphones around. So it's kind of cool that I'm slowly growing my own reputation. And, part of that is now being invited, going out to shows and learning how.
Wrestlers like animals, man. Like, at first, it may take a little bit to get them to drop their guard, but as soon as they do, wrestlers are some of the best people I've ever met in my life. And they take people in as family, and they treat them as their own once you really get over with them and earn their respect.
Absolutely. Dave has become one of my fastest friends in the industry. We sit, we talk about other things outside of wrestling. And I have so much fun now because the way I'm trying to, it's like you sit down and you learn that a guy that, draws blood, spits, and throws people through tables, loves the Cleveland Browns, loves the Cincinnati Bengals, is a huge football fan, a Nintendo 64 master. It's so cool to learn the things outside that, these guys are known for.
Yeah, I'm a pretty cool dude, man.
That's what I hear, and I'm learning that. What do you want to accomplish now once your career's over? I know it's a hard question. Do you picture yourself in the wrestling industry for the rest of your life? Do you think that there's a different path that you may want to go down?
I think, honestly, I could choose any path I wanted to. If I want to get into film or editing or graphic arts, I could do that easily. But I'm pretty good at this thing called professional wrestling, and I think I'm probably going to have a job with that for the majority of my life. But I'm a guy, you never know what I'm going to do. Like, I'm probably always going to have my hand in professional wrestling no matter what, but that doesn't mean I might not get the films. That doesn't mean I might not get into editing or directing. Like, you never know what Sami Callihan is going to do because people don't know me behind closed doors, and I like to keep it that way. I like for people to only know what I put out there because if they actually knew what I did behind the scenes, they probably have a lot more in common with me than they have could even ever realize.
Yeah, we don't want any of that. Outside of wrestling, what piques your interest? Outside of the money part of wrestling, what piques your interest? Is it the creativity aspect of wrestling? Is it the physical
violence? It's melodrama. It's the most pure form of entertainment there really is. There's no second take. It's one take. You go out there, you put on a show, and you bare your heart, you bare your all. There's not another professional that's like that anywhere in the world.
There really isn't, and that's why I'm a 41-year-old grown man that enjoys it every week. I enjoy, Impact, WWE. I love the independent scenes now. I just love the evolution of what wrestling has become.
100%. And I'm in a different part of my life right now. It's like I get more gratification out of seeing people that like I've met on a personal level or I've had investment interest in, just absolutely killing it and just watching them grow over the years. seeing what Becky Lynch has become is absolutely amazing. Seeing what guys like Braun Strowman have become, or the Revival, guys that were in the trenches with me at another place and busted their ass and are killing it on a huge platform. Just like me, if you look at a lot of my friends, like, we're all over the world working for different companies, but we all have the same goals, and we're all working towards the same thing, and that's changing professional wrestling business for the better.
And to wrap this up, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up AEW and what they're doing and how amazing it is as a wrestling fan, because it really feels like a rebirth of almost like the WCW with the way they're doing things. Is this a problem for you? Because I'm starting to worry now as I'm trying to go from being a fan to a journalist, and I don't even really like that word because I think I'll always be a wrestling fan. But with all the hype constantly that's coming out, do you think there's an opportunity that they could burn out the fan base a little too early before they start, really getting going?
No, I don't think fans are ever going to get burned out, because if people really get burned out on football, when you're a football fan, you're a football fan. Or music, if you're a music fan, you're a music fan. It's hard to get burned out on something like that. And there's so many options now that if you get burned out on one product, you can go to another product with a click of a mouse.
And finally, I guess I have to ask this. I don't want to. Have they contacted you? This is like the quintessential interview question now. When you hear a wrestler on a podcast or a radio show, has AEW contacted you? And I feel dirty for asking you that question, Sami, but I kind of have to.
Yeah, I'm not going to answer that either way. I'm saying right now I'm under contract with Impact Wrestling. I love being at Impact Wrestling right now. I'm going to be one of the people that makes Impact Wrestling one of the top companies in the world. And that is my interest, and that is my plans and goals moving forward. I will be the Impact World Heavyweight Champion.
I hope so. I'm rooting for you. And finally, let's talk about where people can find you and some of the stuff, because when Petey and I sit down this week to record our podcast, I am going to go for probably an easy 30 minutes talking about my time at Rockstar Pro and watching and how the matches were set up and how much I enjoyed it. So I want people, if I find something I enjoy and
Rockstar Pro, man, like, you got to give a lot of credit, the majority of the credit of how the booking goes in the field, that company to Jake Christ. People don't realize how smart Jake Christ is, and he's the head booker there. He took that company from being pretty much a joke 5 years ago, drawing 13 people on a Wednesday, to now every Wednesday drawing hundreds of people, and every Friday selling out that building, and actually helped build that company to what it is today.
So definitely go check out Rockstar Pro. Sami, is there anything else you want to tell people to find real quick before we let you go?
Yeah, check out my company and my brand of professional wrestling that myself and Jake Chris run together, called the Wrestling Revolver. We run big shows all over the country, including we'll be running our third annual Pancakes and Pile Driver show, WrestleMania weekend. That's always the talk of WrestleMania weekend. You can check those out on all social media platforms at PW Revolver, or our sweet website at ProWrestlingRevolver.com. You can check me out on the social media. I don't have a Facebook. Facebook bores me. But I do have a Twitter at the Sami Callihan, or my Instagram at Official Callihan.
Sam, thank you so much for this time. I really appreciate you sitting down and talking to me.
100%. Now, put this on there, get a bunch of hits, and then kiss my ass.
Yeah, I like it. Thank you, buddy.